Hello and welcome to program 59 of the Ammach Files. And as you know, we're on peoplesinternetradio.com. And I can't believe it. We've got all the way around to the 1st of December 2015. And actually, it's quite mild today. It was great. So, and look, we're somewhere around 11 p.m. Thank you, Stephen Roberts. What a guy. Before I welcome my lovely guest, who is Nancy, I'm going to see if I can get her name absolutely correct. SCHINGECK Tremaine, what a wonderful name. She's all the way over in Michigan. I'm just going to share a few things, Ammach, with you. Now, one of the services I've provided for the last nearly 5 years is a telephone number. That telephone number is a mobile in the UK, and it's 0795 1752813. Just a reminder for any of those that might want it. And I'll put it up during the show. Now, I don't normally take calls about sightings, but now and again I get a call like this morning, and I'm going to call her Sylvia, who is in quite a little bit of distress, because sometimes when you have had these experiences of which are not even the one-on-one with ET, but just the sighting, and it's very, very close to home, it really still is a bit of a shock. So this is what Sylvia had to say. She's a lady in her 50s, and she was working, and she was overnight at her work and was about to close her curtains. Now, it was about 12:30 midnight, and as she went, of course, it's completely dark. Now, she's in an urban area, so her view allows her the width of vision of about 3 to 4 terraced houses. And as she was just about to pull the curtains closed, she noticed a lot of light in the sky and a kind of a cloud formation, which was quite low. And it was pulsing green and pink, or maybe pink and green, I'm not quite sure now, light throughout. And she was a bit taken aback by that, because you don't see that kind of thing every day. And then as she observed it, she thought, okay, I'm noticing how I am. I'm feeling really calm. And this is also very interesting. There was no fear, there was no sound, no communication, nothing at all that she could see, but she was fairly mesmerized for the maybe 20 or 30 seconds that she watched this. And then it was as if it had deposited some kind of object about tree level height, which appeared, she said, she would imagine it would be around about 5 foot long. It looked a little bit like a fluorescent tube with a square object, one end of it and the other. And it just maintained its presence, again, with this incredible peace and calm. And this is in the area of Essex, if I hadn't already said this. And this was this would be around July 19th. Now, Sylvia only just came forward to talk about this because she'd had some family issues and needs to deal with in the interim, in the few months, and it's only now when it's just settled back that it has made such an impact on her, and this is not uncommon. Now, again, she had tried to tell her nearest and dearest, her partner, who just ridiculed her, just laughed like a dray. Now, you know what? I know this may not sound very much, it's really had a big impact, and I think on this occasion that it might well be preparation for something else to come for her, because she said also recently in the last full moon, which was just last week, I think, or a few days ago anyway, she had a very strong impression as if she was being impelled to go and look at the full moon. And she resisted that for quite a long time, because it meant her going out in her car and driving to get out of the urbanization just to get a clear view. So she finally did that, as I said, about an hour later. There was nothing to see but the moon, which was beautiful, and she enjoyed that. But maybe it was a timing issue and there was nothing to see because of that. So the reason I'm telling you about this is because these things are often preparation for us. A little bit like my 17th of September event, when I saw these beings materialize in my room on what seemed like a holographic screen. And I was just observing. There was nothing, no sound, no communication, no nothing, and no fear. And so it's as if there is some kind of priming going on. And I also note that the rumor on the ground is that the Russians are going to push Obama into disclosing the reality of aliens. Now, of course, we've heard this quite often, and it may seem quite laughable, but the Russian Prime Minister did mention, when he didn't realize he was still on mic, or the mic was still on, something about the aliens and the reality of those. And you know, so it's really like watch this space, because I know that Cameron is having a meeting on January the 23rd with a lot of heads of state in the new year, of course. And that is also, interestingly enough, the anniversary, the 5th anniversary of Ammach. And I just note that it is at that point, apparently, that Russia is going to push for disclosure, or they will do it, is the word on the ground. I don't know whether any of that's true, but it's interesting, so watch this space. Now, just for the last bit of Ammach news, I wasn't going to do it, but I've decided I will, because things are changing with Ammach, and I will let you know a little bit more toward the end of this month what's going to be happening. So this will be the last Ammach event. So it's an Ammach get-together, Christmas get-together, and it's going to be on December the 19th for those who want to join me. It's going to be 1:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. So if you still want to do Christmas shopping and all the rest of that stuff and be with people in the evening, do shopping in the morning, you can. So it's a 1:30 arrive, and we'll be kicking off with festive welcomes, and then at 2:30 p.m. we'll be having James Bartley address us live on Skype from across the other side of the world, giving us latest information and some surprising news that he's come up against about Mars and about my labs. So you don't want to miss that. Now, it's going to be mince pies, mulled wine, nibbles, and what have you. It's going to cost £20. Now, you can either pay on the day or pay by PayPal. And the PayPal email is ammach2011, that's ammach2011@gmail.com. Now, I mention that specifically because the Ammach website is down. Please don't go there. It's been horribly hacked and is under renovation, reconstruction, and things will be different. And as I said, I'll explain what's happening with Ammach toward the end of the month. And I have to say a big shout out to Tony Hurst. Thank you, Tony, who is rescuing me in the regard of the website. And I have to also thank Vin and Stephen Roberts, of course, for keeping me floating on the Ammach files. Now we have a wonderful song before I bring Nancy on, and it is The Prayer by Andrea Bocelli and Celine Dion. So enjoy this, and then we'll be back with Nancy SCHINGECK Tremaine. And a shout out from Lee Hazel, by the way, Nancy. He says hello. Okay. Thanks, Stephen. Oh, hi, folks. Sorry, that caught me unawares. I was waiting for that lovely trail off, but maybe it did for you. So I'd like to welcome now to the Ammach Files, Nancy, all the way over in Michigan. How are you, Nancy?
Oh, fine. Of course, my computer had to crash just before the interview, so we have to use the phone, and it's not real clear for me. I'm hoping that you're getting me clearly.
Yeah, you're great, and we're still on the phone with you, I think, aren't we there, Nancy?
Yeah. I thank you so much for this opportunity, Joanne, and I also want to thank my dear friends Ken Parsons and Hillary Porter for helping make this interview possible.
Yeah, Hillary and Ken of BEAMS, that's British Earth Aerial Mystery Society. Yeah, thank you guys, shout out to you. So Nancy, you've got a book which you have put together, which is all about your experiences. Now, what's very interesting about you, Nancy, is that you, for the last, I hope you don't mind if I say your age, is that okay?
No,
okay,
absolutely not.
So Nancy is 66, and the reason I mention that is simply because it's only since 2011 that Nancy has had her memories back. But I'm going to let Nancy start that off, because her book is a synthesis of that. It's still under construction, under work, but essentially the whole story is written, which I've just read as well. And it really is extraordinary because it involves those creatures that get a very bad press normally, and that's reptilians. So, Nancy, let's start at the beginning. And well, I tell you what, you start where you'd like to start, and we'll pick it up.
Okay, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I was born in Detroit, Michigan in 1949, which makes me 66. I'm the middle of 5 children. I was Daddy's favorite, and it was never a secret to any of my siblings. My dad was a hydraulic engineer in the aerospace division in Sperry Vickers in Michigan. My relationship with my mother was an entirely different story. I always felt like that baby bird in the nest that the mother didn't want. I was a pleaser, and I tried to earn her love. But as she once told me, there is no law that says a mother has to love a child. So we had a very strained relationship. The family operation was very routine. Everything was routine. Our home was spotless, and everything was in perfect order. My father carried a comb, and every hair on all of our heads was perfect. We were like little soldiers, and many people referred to us as little soldiers. I was very popular. I was a track star and a cheerleader. None of us were allowed to get below a C because a C minus is below average, and my parents would never have a child that was below average. I've always preferred the company of animals over people. I am an empath, and people drain me emotionally and physically. So I've always required a lot of alone time. I am quirky. I've been single for 22 years. I live in a small one-bedroom apartment with a mannequin and a stuffed black cat. I was married 4 times, each one lasting 3 years. It's odd because no matter how many times I tell people that I've been single for 22 years, they only hear that I was married 4 times. I suffer with post-traumatic stress disorder, panic attacks. I have an intense fear of doctors and needles. I ended up pregnant at 17, and the man that got me pregnant had a choice of marrying me or going to prison for statutory rape. He married me. I have 1 daughter and 3 precious grandchildren. Oh.
Don't worry, you're doing fine. Don't worry.
Okay,
I know you're really nervous.
I want to tell the listeners that nothing that you're going to hear has been embellished. I've lost my family. My 3 precious grandchildren have been removed from my life. Many of my friends have deserted me. Some of what I'm going to speak about is going to make a lot of you uncomfortable or embarrassed. I've even had people suggest that I leave certain things out and certain words out, but I promise you, I will leave nothing out. For 50 years, I lived with this secret. I never told anyone. So in 2011...
Yeah, I was going to say there as well, to get to this secret, I mean, what was it that, because you began to explore some things in your life through regression, but what was it that took you down that road in the first place?
Well, I held this secret inside. It was an experience that I had in 1961. It was the summer of 1961, and my dad had agreed to let me go to my girlfriend Cindy's house, and there was a direct view from my front door to her front door, and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful day out. It was somewhere between 6:05 when he got home from work, and I was never allowed out after dusk. So we were inside playing, and Cindy's father yelled for us to come outside. And as we walked outside, it was like the scene from The Wizard of Oz where the movie went from black and white to color. Hovering above a big oak tree that was between my home and hers was a large silver craft with flashing lights, like a belt was wrapped around it. Green, red, and white lights that appeared to be rotating. It was totally silent. I felt no fear, just awe. I didn't want to take my eyes off of it for a second. I just wanted everyone to see what I was seeing. A police car pulled up in front of where we all stood, and 2 Novi, Michigan police officers emerged. I tugged on the one officer's arms as I struggled to voice 3 simple words, but my voice went deep in slow motion. I asked him, "Is this real?" He said nothing. We all watched as the car started coming down the road towards us, the road that my house was on. And we knew whoever was driving this car saw this ship. It was right above the car, but it continued to drive and drive until it was nearly beneath the ship. I wondered what the heck the person was thinking. 50 years later, in 2011, I will find out that this is an off-duty police officer patrolling the area that is under construction. His name is Officer Martin Cohn, and he has already called the Chief of Police, BeGole, at the police station in Novi and said, "Strange object overhead." And then a beam of light emerged from the bottom of the ship, and it was directed at his car. And when it made contact with the hood, the car was immobilized. And I have no idea what overtook me, but I started waving my arms and screaming, over here," to the ship. And Cindy, my girlfriend, grabbed my arms, trying to calm me down. The ship tilted on its side, and I received a message. "We see you." I then became hysterical, and I started begging the officer to do something. It was the first time I'd ever seen fear in a man's face, and that was a very defining moment for me.
And were you frightened, Nancy? Sorry, were you frightened at that time as well? You said you got hysterical. Was that with a fear? Was it like a sudden panic overwhelming you, or how did that?
Yes. I wasn't afraid at all until it said, "We see you."
All right.
That's when I became hysterical. Up until that point, I was enjoying every second of it. But when it said, "We see you," I was terrified. That was a defining moment, and I felt I would never be safe in this world again. My next memory was of it being at home, and it was dark. And I was with my dad, and he was reassuring me that I was home and that I was safe. That night, I was silenced to never speak of this again. My father then shared some very private and important information with me, never to be shared even with my mother. The conversation forever bonded me and my father. That night, I stood on my headboard staring out of my bedroom window, right at that tree, the oak tree where only a short time earlier that ship was. And I kept saying, "Please come back and get me. Please come back and get me."
So were you aware then, Nancy, of anything that had happened? Because in the story, just where we are now, just as we're hearing it, there's been many witnesses seeing what you've been seeing, including your girlfriend, the police officers, and indeed you've even been in touch with Lee BeGole, who's now 95, who is chief of police, to verify your story, which he's done. But back then, just remind us what age you would be, Nancy. I don't know if you said that.
I was almost 12.
Okay.
Just before my 12th birthday.
Okay.
And I do not remember the next day. I don't remember it being mentioned. I just knew that I had a secret, and I tried my best to store these memories in a private place in my mind. So for the next 50 years, it was never mentioned, not to a husband, boyfriend, family member, therapist. However, I would draw an illustration of the ship and the car and the beam of light every year, and then I would quickly destroy it. I did that for my sanity.
Yeah, I understand that.
I did try a few times over the years to approach the subject with Cindy, but was immediately stopped. Her whole body would start shaking. I did go to several therapists, but I never mentioned the event. I did tell them that there was something deep inside of me that needed to come out, and that I would get this burning sensation or smell to my nose, and I knew that that was attached to the memories that were locked inside. But they only wanted to give me medication. But 50 years later, and after the third regression, I found out what the burning smell was. It was ozone. It was electromagnetism from the ship.
Okay, so let's just go back to Cindy for a bit, and just go back to the time when you guys were 12. So for your life growing up from those sort of early years, then immediately afterwards, how was Cindy? I mean, would she never talk about it?
No, we never spoke about it, never, and our relationship ceased.
Okay.
I got new friends. She turned into a hardcore alcoholic and addicted to drugs, painkillers. Smoked 5 packs of cigarettes a day. Over the decades, I would keep taking her back in my life, but her drinking was just too much.
Yeah. I mean,
she was self-destruct.
And is it your opinion? Is it your opinion that that was as a direct result of what happened to you both? You know, that she went down that road?
Was an alcoholic, but I believe that had something to do with it, because when I did get her to open up in 2012, finally, that was one of the first things she said is, "I'm not an alcoholic because of that." So she was. Yeah, so absolutely, poor thing. Yeah, it's very, very tough. And do you, Nancy, these days attribute the post-traumatic stress to these events, or is that would you say that's something else? No, I've had a lot of things horrible happen in my life, as you saw in the book.
Yeah.
From being molested twice.
Yeah.
And various other things, abusive husbands. I think I was on self-destruct, and I think I went on self-destruct because I couldn't speak about what had happened, because when I went back to school, started 7th grade after this event, I was a different person. I was a bully. Which is not me at all. I was filled with anger and rage, and
yeah.
And that year was very tough for me. And,
yeah. I don't know whether, Nancy, just to mention it, I don't have one. You sent me in the book. You have an image of the UFO with the car, and in the images that you've sent me, because I couldn't get them off the PDF, I don't have that. So if you have time during the show, don't worry about it if you don't. You can bob that into the Skype or email if you get chance. Don't worry otherwise, because we can find it later and put it up on the podcast page. So
okay, great.
So we'll just continue with the unfolding of the
to the first day of September in 2011, which was the first day of me beginning to heal.
Yeah.
Before that day, I had never read or studied. I didn't even know. I had never heard the word ufology and didn't know ufologists existed. I did know about Betty and Barney Hill, and I always knew it was true. And I had seen the movie Close Encounters, and it had affected me severely.
Oh, did it?
But somehow I came across a ufologist by the name of Dr. Harry Wellness, and he had studied UFOs for over 50 years, and it must have been the time, because I sent him an email telling him that I might have something he'd be interested in hearing. And he called me that day. And for the first time in 50 years, that day, I told him everything that I could remember.
Yeah.
We met shortly after that, and he asked me if I would draw a picture of what I'd seen, and I, of course, was thrilled that I could do it without having to discard it. And he brought a bunch of books for me to read. He never doubted me. And 10 days later, he had found a regression therapist for me by the name of Dr. Vaughn Vowles, who had done many regressions over the years, but I was his first of this kind. And I must admit, I worried it wouldn't work. I do clearly remember the last few minutes of that first regression. I was paralyzed, and I was fighting to move my arms and legs, and I was angry. And I remember when I was paralyzed, it was like out of a cartoon. I was frozen in the running position. That's how they got me. And my arms and legs were still in running position. I think you have that illustration. I drew an illustration of that. When that beam of light hit me.
Yeah, yeah.
And I knew it was going to hit me.
So we're talking about that incident back when you were 12. You're describing it now in 2011, how it panned out during the regression.
Yep. They told me they were going to get me, and I knew they were, and I kept yelling, "Don't get me, don't get me. Take Cindy too." I said that over and over again. And then I found myself, the last thing I remember before he brought me out of the regression was I was laying on my back in like an electrical energy of some type. And I said, my body is waving and rumbling to the low hum of the ship. And it was a wonderful feeling. And Don was trying to bring me out of the regression. I was actually fighting him because I wanted to stay in that wonderful feeling. After that, first regression, I started my own investigation. I knew there was much more than a sighting, and I was determined to find out the whole story and prove that I wasn't crazy. The first thing I did was to go on Facebook and found a classmate, and he told me that the chief of police in 1961 was Chief Lee BeGole. So I Googled, all I did was Google Chief Lee BeGole, and up popped that the following day, now what are the odds of this? The following day, he was going to be having a ceremony with a street named after him. 50 years had gone by, and the following day, he was going to have the street signing. So I quickly composed a letter, put it in an envelope, got there early, and I waited for an opportunity to hand him the envelope, asking him to please call me and telling him about the incident in 61. And it was nearly 2 weeks before I heard from him, and I was starting to doubt my sanity, and did it really happen? But he called me with a lucid and mind and memory, and I fell on my knees on the floor as I listened to him. He told me he believed the car I saw immobilized was one of his own police officers. He said, "Honey, you're not crazy. It really happened." He believed there was an article in the news, and he said that he took phone calls for over 20 minutes. When we got off the phone, I cried uncontrollably because I realized it is real. It's really, really real.
Yeah. I think that's such a huge realization and important thing for people. You know, I've heard that, you know, relief, you know, so many times, and the emotional release that comes with it is tremendous. And it, you know, it's about validation for you as a human being, as a sane being, and as someone who has value, for goodness sake. And you know, that is not being subjected to ridicule. They're actually being listened to, and that is so important as part of the healing.
Absolutely, Joanne. Absolutely. It was the not knowing that was destroying me.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's. Do you want to share now some of what occurred on that event, or do you want to go through the regressions? I'll let you lead because, you know, I know you've been through this story so much recently.
Yeah. Let's start with October, which was just October 13th, 2011. I had my second regression. And during this regression, I call her little girl Nancy Speaks, because it's a 12-year-old Nancy.
Yeah.
And she is terrified.
It's normal. I mean, it's perfectly normal. And I know that you're having a bit of a hard time sharing this with us, but you are among friends, you know, and everybody's different. Not everybody here and around, you know, can always accept everything, but, you know, you're with friends. So we are listening to you with open hearts and open minds. And that's what we can ask of ourselves.
I was running, and just like I said earlier in the regression, and I kept saying, I told Vaughn, I said, I can haul ass. I can run fast. And I said, get Cindy too, because I don't want to go alone. And then the next, I pulled ahead, and I start crying, and I'm writhing in pain as I describe the needle that they place in my stomach. And Dr. Vowles asked me if this was done with malice, and I explained, no, they are just doing their job. I was aware that they had limited time with me, and I felt a sense of urgency. When they were done, they placed a smooth, and you have this illustration also, they placed a smooth cylindrical metal rod in my right hand. I was receiving information contained within this rod. Take this baton and run with it. Be an ambassador. I tell Vaughn that the Grays left the room, and the doors closed, and the room became totally seamless as those doors shut. And I tell him about the nice one, which is a female, babying me, and she looks much more human than the others. And the next thing, I find myself standing exactly where I had been when they took me. And I'm looking up at the ship, and the ship tells me, see, we told you we'd get you back home safely. It started to go up slowly, and then boom, it was just gone, just gone. Dawn asked me if there was a lesson that I learned in this regression, and I said, my dad can't always keep me... My dad can't keep me safe all the time.
Well, you know what, Nancy, I just think you're incredibly brave to come and speak to us, because I think this is only the third time you've spoke publicly about this. Is that right? Or fourth time?
This is the third time, yes.
The third time. So listen, let's just go back to the event on the ship, because we just went straight into what was happening to you. So the illustration that we have, I don't know whether Steve can put that one up for us. It's of you lying without your clothes on a bed with three beings to your right side. And in your hand, as you say, there is a cylindrical object, but also further over to the right, there is a see-through tube, a large see-through tube in which is lying Cindy watching you.
Oh, that's a different. Cindy is watching when they put the needle in my stomach.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, she was only aboard for a few minutes, and she wasn't there when they put the cylindrical rod. Those are two separate illustrations. The one of her, that was the needle. Yeah, that's why I'm trying to keep it in order, because it gets confusing, because I wasn't allowed they didn't allow me to remember the entire event inside the ship until after my third regression. And that is when Mr., who I refer to, the main reptilian that I deal with, had told me, you will now be able to remember the entire event of 1961, because that's all I kept asking. I want to know it all. I want to remember it all. It was so important. I remembered that day.
So, so that event then, have you any idea of timing? Because I think that's important, Nancy, because there is a timing element because in fact you were missing for quite a long time, weren't you? I mean, you
Yes, I
actually
was.
disappeared from view. And I think this is incredible because not only was this event being watched by others, i.e. at least 2 or 3 policemen and probably 1 or 2 others around, apart from Cindy and yourself, just prior to you being taken, I'm just recapping here just to give people an overarching view of what immediately happened beforehand. There is a UFO shooting down a beam of light, which is hitting the bonnet of a car, the front part of the car, which is being driven by, we now know, an off-duty policeman, Martin Cohn. And that just comes to a stop as the beam of light hits the bonnet. And then you are getting really excited, and Cindy's trying to calm you down. And then they acknowledge you. That's right, isn't it, in this chronology? And then you begin to try and run, but you're also saying you want Cindy, because you know that something's about to happen. And that's when there's a beam shot and it hits you in the back, and you are frozen in the running position. As you say, you can run fast, you can haul ass. You used to win awards at school for running.
Yes, exactly.
But you're in this frozen running position, and then the next thing from the regression that you're aware of is that you're on the table and that you've got this silver cylinder in your hand. Have I encapsulated that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. The reason I'm doing this, Cindy, from time to time is just in case the connection goes off or it's not that clear for everybody, just to make sure we have that understood. So, yeah, you carry on, Cindy. It's a fascinating story because the beings who gave you the cylinder, they look like greys. I haven't got that picture at the moment. It may be on the podcast. I'll have a look at that, the podcast page.
Yes, they were great. And the pilot was just a normal, looked like anybody's father.
Okay.
But I didn't remember until after the third regression, and I haven't gotten to that, so I'm jumping ahead.
All right. Okay. I'll bring you back to the third regression then.
Okay. I'm still in the investigation mode, and the next move I made was to find Cindy. We had kept in touch over the decades, but her drinking would constantly cause distance between us. We set up an appointment, and I arrived, and I prayed to God she would be sober. She was. And I showed her the illustrations one by one. She was terrified. And I thought, oh no, if I had to tie her to that bed, she was going to look at these illustrations and she was going to talk to me. I'd had it. And when I got to I only had 3 illustrations at that point. I think it was the second illustration. She almost stopped breathing, and she said, "You were gone. We couldn't find you. I think my dad called your dad." And I couldn't believe I was hearing her say this. And the first question I asked her is, I said, "Where did I tell you I had been when you first saw me?" And without 1 second of hesitation, she said, "Outer space." Now, those are certainly the words of a 12-year-old child. Next, we go to opening Pandora's box. It's November 17th. Now, it's only been 2 months since I met Dr. Wellness, and I'm having my 3rd regression. And Dr. Wellness was at every regression, and I lovingly referred to us as the 3 Musketeers. But none of us had any idea that just two days after this regression, Pandora's box would be opened. Because the next 3 years, which are the past 3 years of my life, would be filled with strange experiences, missing times, voids, messages, and the fine-tuning of my pineal gland, and a hybrid baby. Once regressed, now I'm into the 3rd regression. Once regressed, Vaughn asked me where I am, and I said, I'm just standing here. And I don't know how I got here. And then I started to cry, and I said, I don't want to go through that pain again, meaning the laparoscopy. So Vaughn pulled me forward. And I was alone in the room, and I said, I'm scared. I can't see them. Maybe I just don't want to see them. Vaughn asked me what they want with me, and I whispered practically. I said, tests.
And were these, Nancy, sorry, just to interrupt, were these always the Greys who were doing the test, or were there any other?
Yes.
Okay.
The Greys, yes. The only aliens that I've ever been involved with were the Greys, Mr., who's a reptilian, and then my hybrid children, and the nice one on board. I told Vaughn that they were just staring at me, and I tried to explain to him that they were taking it all, that they were clearing my mind. I told him they were gathering information. I tell him they are puzzled by my reactions, and they are fascinated by me as much as I am fascinated by them. I told him that they just want to learn. They want to learn my thoughts and my feelings. He says, what do you tell them? And I said, I don't have to tell them anything. They just take it. They are moving. My feet aren't. I find myself between the two of them, and we are all gliding slightly above the floor together. No one's feet were moving, but we were all moving in unison. I knew they were taking me somewhere, and I knew they were going to shut me down. And I argued with them. I was so mad. I begged them, please don't do this. Please don't shut me down. But they don't want me to remember, and they say it will be easier this way. I assured Vaughn that they were being nice to me, and I realized that they were doing this for my own good. Vaughn asked me where I was, and I said, I'm not anywhere. I just am. So apparently, when a person is shut down, they aren't anywhere. They just are. They just exist. I said, I just am. Then they started to apologize to me for all the walls that had been put up all my life. And they assure me that they're going to take these walls down that have surrounded me throughout my life. I told Vaughn I'm not going to be hurt anymore, and now I can love now. I told him I could love without the fear of being hurt. Then I am shocked to hear these words coming from a voice that I know is mine. I said, they love me. They are me. I want to be with them forever. And that was the end of regression.
And that's quite a shocking thing to realize as well, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, it's these conflicting things: the fear, and then the love,
yes.
and that's very hard. I think
these are all emotions that they're studying. Yes.
Yeah, as you said, they were studying as much as anything your emotions.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So
2 days after. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, sorry. I was carry on. I'll ask you in a second.
Oh, I was just going to say that 2 days after this third regression, I was telepathically told that I would not only be able to remember the entire event back in 1961, but they were going to allow me to relive it. Just as they had promised, they were going to give the memories back to the rightful owner, me. I sat on the floor in front of the computer, and I was told to get pad of paper and pen. And for 7 hours I sat on that floor, and I would be taken through that event of 61. I believe that the messages are from a collective mind, or from the entity that I call Mr., the pilot of the ship from 61.
Yeah, and you're calling him Mr., like we might say, hey, Mr. You know, it's, I know perhaps a bit more of an Americanism than it is here, but as you said, back in the 60s, it would be, you know, you wouldn't speak to another stranger, a guy like that, you'd say, hey, Mr., wouldn't you? So
everyone was
Mr. Yeah.
Children said we had manners back then and respect for elders, and all of my girlfriend's fathers were Mr., whatever their last name was. So, yeah, that's how that name came about. But I entered the ship, and I ran right past the pilot. I was not afraid, because the pilot looked just like anyone's father, and I was excited. I knew he flew the UFO because he was sitting at the controls. And I thought to myself, I can't believe I'm on a flying saucer. And I felt the pilot's amusement, and he corrected me. He said, it's a ship. And I said, Mister, this can't be a ship, because a ship goes in the water, and a ship is what Captain Hook was on. And he said, oh, but this does go in the water. And that short exchange of words, it gave me the name Mr., which I still call him. Now, standing inside the ship, I can clearly see that those red, green, and white lights that I saw from the outside that were pulsating or rotating were nothing more than windows. They were large windows. And it was a perfect view. I was so small, I had to stand on my toes so that I could look out the window. But I saw Cindy's father. I didn't see Cindy. I didn't see the police. Only Cindy's father was standing there, and he was looking up. I'm sure he couldn't see me, but I waved my arms and screamed at him. I was then taken forward in time to the nice one. She was the female on board, because they didn't want to take me through the laparoscopy again. And she helped me get dressed, and she walked me back to the pilot. And as I approached him, I was confused and I was angry. I said, Mister, why did you let them hurt me? And he said, your pain was perceived. And then I was infuriated. He told me to learn to expand my perception and find the positives in each perception. If we are abused, then we will perceive our reality as a negative. Through love, we are able to perceive our reality and find that it is so. Everything and everybody is peripheral to our universe and our reality. If we can conquer the concept that we are all part of one energy, the concept of unity becomes obvious to us, and we no longer fear the unknown death, because whatever we are always who we are. Turn on all your positive sensors. Believe in your ability to grow and change. And then he put these words in my head. And he told me to put them to paper. All memories are packed and taken with us in each new life. When the load becomes too heavy, we travel or become, and he put quotations, light knowledge energy.
That's really quite profound, isn't it? And I think it's interesting, just going back to what you'd had, the procedure. It was again, you were only 12 years old. There was and you have an absolute fear of needles and white coats, and you had a big needle put into your navel area, into the lower abdomen area.
Yes.
Doing some testing, and then they also, as you say, and we'll come to that, we haven't got to that point yet, also upgraded or stimulated perhaps, or I don't know what they might have done to it, your pineal gland as well.
Yes.
But it's very interesting, the idea of perception of pain. You know, it's only perception. I have to say, when I am getting a migraine, I that perception is overwhelming. And let me tell you, I'm going to take a painkiller. I'm I don't take very many painkillers in my life, but I tell you what, I can't hack that one. So that's really tough for us humans because our material, our bodies are so sensitive. My goodness.
Well,
So
I
maybe
think
it's not.
that I was perceiving the pain because I was seeing the needle. And I think when I saw the needle going in my stomach, I perceived the pain. I don't believe that they hurt me physically.
Yeah.
They don't operate like that. But I saw the needle in it. And also, during this time, Mr. told me that it was important and necessary for me to know that the Krill-Eisenhower Treaty of February 20th, 1954 did in fact take place. So I have no doubts about that.
So that's interesting. Let's just expand on that just for a moment. I think most people may be familiar, but listen, for those who aren't, can you just expand on that?
Yes, this was a treaty between Eisenhower and I don't know how many aliens but there were 5 agreements that were agreed to. That the aliens would not interfere in our affairs, and we would not interfere in theirs. We would keep their presence on Earth a secret, and in return, they would furnish us with advanced technology, and we would receive assistance from them in our technological advancement. They would make no other treaties with any other Earth nation. They could abduct humans on a limited basis for a purpose of medical examinations and to monitor our development, with the stipulation that humans would not be harmed and they would be returned to their point of abduction. Humans would have no memory, and that the alien nation would furnish the NJ-12 committee with a list of human contacts and abductees on a regular basis. And they kept that promise for 50 years. And then they were kind enough to give me back my memories.
Do you think?
I believe.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just going to say, do you think they have still honored that agreement? A lot of people think that they haven't, that they reneged. Do you think they did?
Do I think? I'm sorry.
Do you think the ET have reneged on their agreement over the years? Some people think they have. I.e., they were supposed to give.
I think we have. I don't think they have. I think we have.
Okay. So anyway, that's just very interesting, and interesting too that you should be told that specifically, because there is a. It's like it's grown into be an urban myth, and a lot of people, can't accept that could possibly be true. Oh, it was known as the Treaty of Greada at the time, and I think that they met on more than one occasion, didn't they? Anyway, so carry on. It's absolutely fascinating.
All right, I'll read you a few of the messages that they've given me. If you want to know who we are, because I was constantly asking them, who are you? If you want to know who we are, you have only to look in the mirror. We are you. We are all one. Your destiny is to learn what you are and then to express it perfectly. Empathy holds back. Did you have a question?
Sorry, Nancy. I was just musing over that last comment.
Oh.
As perfect as you can be. Listen, I do have just a question from the chat room, just asking when was the first time you were taken? was there a time before, I know we haven't spoken about this yet, but it's just a question that's come up. Were you taken at all before 12 years old?
Yes, I was. When I was, and it's in the book. I was 2 or 3. You know, I'll talk about that.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. It's just so people know. They just want to know if this was the first time. All right.
Mm-hmm. They wanted to tell me that empathy holds back technology, and they told me that it's important to remember that the driver still lives. It is only the vehicle that is sacrificed. Empathy is another one of these emotions that they are reincorporating into the hybrids and into themselves. It's something that they've lost, just as we humans are losing. They told me to imagine the human body as the universe. The universe has cancer. And this message, our messages are not for everyone. Many will be left behind. Now, I didn't think they meant this message was to be taken literally, but in 2014 they assured me that, oh yes, it is. People who are not awakened, who do not realize what's going on, they're going to be left behind. Not dead, but left in a different dimension. We're moving forward. And the people that are awakened, they know, they feel it. They're listening to the show right now. And the ones that don't want to hear about it, like my family and most of my friends, they're going to be left behind. They will progress at some time, but they're not ready yet. My mission is not to, this is one thing they wanted me to quit trying to convince people. They said, your mission is not to convince, it is to inform. So anybody that's not on board now, that hasn't awakened yet, it's too late. They're not going to. They're not going to advance. So I'm not going to even try to convince them.
You know, that's very interesting, you know, talking about that, because I've been having this conversation with quite a few people, you know, of the last months, whatever, exactly about this point. Because, you know, there is this sense of urgency that if we do not wake up, you know, this isn't, you know, going to last forever, this opportunity to wake up. And it does feel like we're on the brink of something enormous energetically. How that pans out, you know, obviously I really can't say. There's lots of ways humanity could go. But isn't it interesting that that has been, you know, a point of reference and a real awareness that there is this sense of time running out. And I'm not the only one to say this by a long way. So there is a kind of a meme developing about that. So it sounds like something's getting hold. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Anyway, carry on. It's very interesting.
There were just so many times that I would doubt my sanity. I mean, I actually would think I'm going crazy. This cannot be right. And I reached out to my regression therapist, and I want to read it, just a few sentences, but he wrote this back, and it's so beautiful. He said, Nancy, if you are crazy, then so are 100,000 other experiencers. There is nothing I have heard you say or do to make me doubt your sanity. Our government is guilty of not supporting its citizens that have gone through these harrowing episodes. The messages coming through you are of great value to humanity. Those who are not capable of understanding spiritual evolution, those who are capable of understanding spiritual evolution will benefit. I am impressed with your courage and drive for the truth. Mediocre minds are only impressed with the mediocre.
Yeah, that's, you know, well done. I can only say well done. And, you know, at 66 years old, and you've had this enormous awakening and awareness, just kind of, you know, it must have been like a volcano for you. I can't imagine how you've coped, because
overwhelming.
You've had so little support. You have had some, and thank goodness for the people around you, your regression therapist and the other guy, your Three Musketeers team. Wonderful, and
Thank you.
and
Thank you for
and here in the
acknowledging
UK,
me.
you have us and me.
Oh,
So yeah,
thank
so
you for
let's
that.
carry on with your journey then, because
Oh,
it is huge, as you said, and and again, I just want to flag this up for everybody. Sorry, Nancy, I just want to say this once more, at the risk of repeating myself ad nauseum. People like Nancy who have lost relationships with her family, with her daughters, with her grandchildren, with other elements of her family and friends and social structure. This is real, and this impacts your life big style. I don't care whether you believe in this or not. What I'm telling you is that people like Nancy actually really experience this ostracization. There you go, I've made up a new word of life, and it is painful. It is really difficult, and I'm just stressing this point because Nancy is not alone in her experience of being ostracized in society, in her world, and it is very, very difficult. And I just want to say again, Nancy, well done, and I support you 100%. And so many people just still do not believe some of the things that people like yourself have been through. And whether we go back to the perception business, I don't know, but whether perceived or not, the reality is what it is, and other people perceive it too around you. Okay, I'm done with that bit.
Bless, just bless you. Thank you for that. Thank you for validating. Wow.
So let's go back to your regression then.
Oh.
Where are we in that story?
We are now in the beginning of 2012 and after the third regression still. And I'm allowed to remember the conversation that I had with my father in 61. Remember?
Okay, yes, let's hear the story your father told. That's fascinating.
My father was kneeling down on the kitchen floor. We had our arms wrapped around each other. I had just returned home, and he kept telling me I was safe and I was home, and he was squeezing me and loving me. And then he told me that I could not speak of what I had seen or what had happened, ever. I was confused, and I said, why? I want to. He said, you can't. And he grabbed me by both arms and shook me. And he said, do you understand me? You cannot tell anyone. And I started to cry. And I said, yes. I didn't understand why my father was saying these things and why he seemed so angry with me. I did not understand why this event was a secret. And who was I keeping it from? But I then now realize that my dad's anger was coming from a place of fear.
Yeah.
And I realize now also that someone had talked to my father and warned him to silence me, and he kept me silent, and it worked.
Do you know who that was?
Yes, that's also, yes, the government, our dear government. They came in and cleaned house. Even, this is something that Cindy told me. She remembers them coming two men coming to her house. I don't remember them coming to my house. My father was so overly protective. After that,
you're doing great.
I must have talked to my dad that night about the aliens that were on the ship. I'm sure I did, because my dad felt it necessary to tell me about Skinny Bob, an alien that the government had captured and gave him that nickname. I clearly remember my father using the word captured. I assumed that it was the United States that had captured Skinny Bob, but the Russians or Soviets, they claim that they captured Skinny Bob. There are videos on the internet of Skinny Bob.
Now, the images that you're talking about, I just want to clarify this because I was looking at that before I did the show, and there's quite a well-known image of, they say it's, I don't know whether they call it J-Rod or an ET, and it looks like it's real. It looks like it's in an interrogation room. It looks like it becomes distressed. You see a pair of gloved hands.
I believe that's a different video that you're referring to.
So there's a couple of them. There's a couple of them.
And basically, Bob.
Okay, but they're both of them are the large-headed, big-eyed, skinny-bodied guys. There are a couple of those videos. I know which the other one you mean as well. And so your dad now, because you're insisting on talking about this, he's then telling you about something or somebody called Skinny Bob who was captured as he was aware. How did your dad know about that?
Well, I believe that my father learned of Skinny Bob during World War II. My father served in the 5th Air Corps during World War II and spent 3 years in New Guinea, the Philippines, and the Netherlands. And he drove for General Whitehead. Boy, I wish I had all the information on this in front of me.
That's all right.
And I'd written to Ryan Wood from the Majestic Files. I don't know if you know who Ryan Wood, the Majestic 12.
Ryan and yeah.
Yes, and his father. I had written to him and told him about my father telling me about Skinny Bob, and we had a few conversations, and I asked him if it was possible that General Whitehead had that knowledge, and because my dad did spend time with him, and it was an era of the Foo Fighters, and he said that he certainly had the what's the word he used? he certainly had the knowledge or the experience that he certainly could have been there. So, and I don't know why, but I have all my dad's love letters to my mother from 3 years from World War II, and I am constantly being taken back to this particular letter that my dad had written about driving with General Whitehead. And my dad was very young. He was 19 when they took him into the service, and General Whitehead was a lot older. I think he was in his 30s at the time. But my dad really felt like he was really a bigwig because he was hanging with 3-star General Whitehead and General Prentice and driving for them. But
So your dad said that, so he talked about Skinny Bob. So really he was empathizing with you. He was sharing information that he knew about the ETs. And in fact, that the military knew about the ETs, and particularly this one called Skinny Bob. Did he say anything else about Skinny Bob to you? Because what we're going to do, we've got a 3-minute 50 video of on YouTube of Skinny Bob. And we're going to play that and just give you a break in a minute.
Okay. Well, I think the reason he told me about this Skinny Bob was because he knew someday I was going to be able to talk about this, and he was pissed at the government for telling them to shut me up. And he wanted to validate my experiences, and he knew it would be of great value and reassuring information for me in the future, and it has been. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, listen, I think you deserve a little break. Let's Stephen, if we've got the Great Aliens KGB leak Skinny Bob YouTube, let's have a look. If it's the same one I'm looking at.
Just give me a few seconds here. I got a 3-minute 50-second one here. Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's absolutely great. So, Nancy will. This is almost 4 minutes, so you can have a little breather and get a drink. I just want to say, again, you're doing brilliantly. just stay on the line for us. I mean, you can go get a drink, but don't come off the line if you're okay with that. And
okay, I'm ready.
Are you ready?
Thank you.
Okay, so Nancy, you have a little breather. Everyone, enjoy this. This is really interesting. You can make up your own mind. A lot of people think this is authentic. As say, make up your own mind.
No one's able to debunk it. No one. But all right, I'll talk to you in a bit.
Okay, all right. So this is just 3 minutes 50. So you go and make yourself a little drink, have a little loo break, and we'll see you in a minute. Thanks, Stephen. Thank you. So I hope you found that of interest, folks. I can't remember, Stephen, if we had any sound with that or not. But anyway, you can go and have another look at that.
There wasn't.
At another time. So Skinny Bob. And there are others who have spoken about ETs who have been captured. Anyway, let's get straight back over to Nancy and let's carry on with that story. Thanks for that, Nancy.
Okay. Now I'm going to get into some, when I was talking about earlier, some of what I will speak about will make many of you uncomfortable or embarrassed. But I can't leave this information out, and the reason I can't leave this out is because this is something that I lived with for over a year, and it is a part of the reptilians. So I have to leave it in. I met a man, I refer to him as Sid. I met him January 7th, 2012. 6'6", 250 pounds. His height made me very uncomfortable and embarrassed because everywhere we went, people would gasp.
Because you're only 5'3" or something like that?
Yes, I'm barely 5'3", 105 pounds, so we looked ridiculous together. I was always embarrassed. And I actually tried to pretend like he was my bodyguard. I would walk ahead of him. And he was not any man that I would ever be attracted to. He was very uneducated, and I'm not attracted to uneducated people. His grammar was horrible. I was constantly correcting it. But there was
Now, the reason that he plays a part in this as well, just to clarify this for everybody, is because of the fact that your pineal gland had been stimulated. So there was a huge outpouring then and stimulation, not only of different faculties, but also of sexual energy. Now, this is very common with people who have links with reptilians. It's not that other races don't work on that energy area either, but it seems to be a very strong area of interest for the reptilians. And this caused an incredible activity for you, an incredible ramping up of energy in that regard.
Yeah, I looked for other women, and I, that had gone through what I'd gone through, and I couldn't find anyone even close to what I experienced. He literally almost killed me. He was a prison guard. I don't know how I held off till the third date. I really don't, because the chemistry between us both was unbelievable. He had never even heard of Betty and Barney Hill. He had never even heard of the movie Close Encounters. And I was trying to explain things to him, but I was still in the process of learning at that time. That this was early 2012. And I really dreaded putting this chapter in the book because of the reaction that I get to the material. I have tried discussing it with people, and well, here goes. As I understand it, the reptilians are attempting to reincorporate sexual desire back into themselves or into their hybrid humans. And they somehow managed to manipulate my pineal gland, and by doing so, they were able to experience my pleasure, and I believe Sid's pleasure as well. But on February 8th, 2012, I've done the best I can here to, we can talk about beheading, rape, child molestation, murder, war, animal abuse, but the words that I'm going to use, female ejaculation and orgasms, make people uncomfortable. I experienced 30 to 40 ejaculations, not orgasms, ejaculations, and 5 to 10 orgasms. I lost well over a quart of fluid. I'm going to finish this as fast as I can because I want to get it done.
But don't go too fast because we actually can't understand you. Now I'll have to ask you to repeat it.
Oh, no, you don't.
So we're just talking about an experience that normally we hear men speaking about. Well, I don't know if they have 30 to 40 ejaculations in one kind of session, but and the fact that you lost a lot of fluid, a lot of body fluid. Now, if we just talk technically about this.
I compared it to shooting a loaded pistol, and I had no control. Oh, boy, I'm going to really get graphic, but 30 to 40 ejaculations and 5 to 10 orgasms. We got through trying to count. At first, we were laughing. Then I got a really sharp pain in my chest, and my heart. I clutched my chest, and I said, ouch, that really hurt. My heart was pounding and racing as if it was going to burst out of my rib cage. And I sit home, and I was actually on my way to the tanning bed, and my heart wouldn't stop. So I called one of my best friends and told him what had happened, and he said, get to the hospital, you had a heart attack. And I didn't like that answer, so I called my girlfriend, Cindy, and she said, get to the hospital, you had a heart attack. Well, there are me in hospitals and needles. Anyway, I went to the emergency room, and I walked in, and I said, it's probably nothing, but I might have had a heart attack. You never saw people scrambling so quickly. I was in a wheelchair and wheeled into a room and put in a bed, and I had my driver's license, but two nurses, female nurses, wanted to know what had happened, and I said, I'm too embarrassed. I can't tell you. And they said, well, you have to tell us. So I broke down, and I told them I had 30 or 40 ejaculations and 5 or 10 orgasms, and I lost over a quart of fluid. And they looked at each other, and they started laughing out loud. Now, here's a 66-year-old woman who supposedly just had a heart attack, and they're laughing at me. They're laughing their asses off. The one says, sure you did, honey. Well, and the other one says, well, good for you. I was pissed. I said, I am telling the truth. Both the nurses left the room, and they returned with what I assumed was a doctor. Later found out he was a PA. And they were having a ball. They said, tell them what you told us. And they were mocking me. I said, no. And they insisted, you have to tell them. I said, can't you tell them for me? Nope. So I looked in the eyes of the PA, and they had apparently already told him, because he looked at me like I was insane. What happened? He said. I was a mess. I started crying, and I told him what had happened. They threw when you have a heart attack, the nitroglycerin under my tongue, and he said, you've had a heart attack. He told me I had a heart attack. I made him repeat it because I couldn't believe he said that. a stretcher was brought in, and I was wheeled out into a crowd of doctors and nurses, and everyone was standing there. They couldn't wait to see me coming out of the room, and they were all smiling. Everybody knew about what this crazy, I was 62 at the time, year-old woman had claimed to have done. They were nudging each other and grinning. I mean, I could have been dying from a heart attack. They didn't care. I was sent to the second hospital, and the following day they performed a heart catheterization, which is a very invasive procedure. The next thing I remember is waking up in recovery, and the doctor said, "There is absolutely nothing wrong with you." And I could hear the anger in his voice. It wasn't anger at me. He was angry at the PA who had said I'd had a heart attack. And I said, "You mean I didn't have a heart attack?" And he said, "No, not unless some kind of a miracle was performed." Then I was wheeled out of the room, and my daughter and my best friend were standing there, and they were holding a diagram of my heart. And the doctor had signed it, and I still have it as evidence. Everything I tell you, I have evidence and people to back me up. And it was signed, and next to his signature, he had written in big letters, "Normal." I was irate. You couldn't get me out of that hospital quick enough. A female doctor came in and she apologized. And I said, if you guys had listened to me, I wouldn't have had to gone through this procedure.
Yeah, so
if you'd listened.
Can I just ask you then? Did you have a heart spasm? Was there something that did occur that caused your heart to give you, pain?
This is what's so funny is I have the hospital reports. They couldn't come up with anything. There was not one thing with me. So what they wrote was, it was probably, and they used the word probably, it was probably just a heart spasm. And I said to the doctor, "Gee, do you think so? I would think that 30 or 40 ejaculations would have killed a 20-year-old woman."
Oh, dear.
Seriously. I'm glad we got that out of the way. Now we can head forward.
Well, listen, I've got... sorry to interrupt. Let me just ask a couple of questions that have come from the chat. I can see one. I can't see the other. One was, were there ever any sexual activity or relations with the visitors, with these others, or was it just left to the humans?
That's a wonderful question, because there were times when we were having sex when I could actually feel Mr. It was like he was using Sid as a vessel. And I figured that maybe that's why he picked this 6'6" guy. I don't know.
Okay. All right. So you felt maybe that he may have been, if you like, piggybacking or overshadowing. Maybe we could say Sid.
Yes.
To get his feed of the sensation, as it were.
Exactly. And Sid was aware.
Did they ever say why they would do that? Because I know that you've come out of your experiences overall, and we'll talk about the pregnancy in a minute as well. Because for a 62-year-old lady to have a pregnancy, that's pretty special.
There's illustration. There's pictures of my stomach. Did you get the pictures of my stomach?
I did. Now, where did I see that? Did you email me that? Okay, I'll have to have a look at that. I know I've seen it somewhere, but where were we? Sorry, I've completely lost myself. So is this all that, just going back to the regressions, picking up there, is this now all that's come through the regressions? Have you had anything else that's been revelatory for you?
Well, the regressions only lasted for 7 months, so anything that's happened in the past 3 years has all been coming to me on my own. I don't need regressions anymore. It was just kind of like a jump start.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you, so another question is, and did you feel any sexual attraction to the visitors? And if not sexual attraction, then some kind of adoration for them, some kind of lovingness, which I think you did.
Absolutely. I love Mr. I feel like I've always been with him. And when he did enter Sid, I could feel it. And Sid could actually feel it because he would make remarks.
Really?
Yes, one time he said, "Boy, Mr. really liked that one." And we laughed because we were both aware of it. I think that, yes, they're trying to reincorporate a sexual desire back into themselves. I think this is something that has atrophied.
I mean, they are famous or infamous, perhaps, for the sexual also element of their interaction with humans, and often it's not very pleasant. You know, there's been rapes and that kind of thing, and very aggressive sexual activity that people have reported, whether that is actual physical in the body or in the astral. The effects are the same on our physical body. Just for those who think there might not be, they are. There are signs, there would be signs of rape, penetration, that kind of thing. That is absolute. So I'm interested that you feel this lovingness for him particularly, because we didn't. I tell you what, I meant to ask you. We didn't talk about you talked about the friendly lady. Can you just describe her for us? I know she was the one on the ship who you said babied you. She kind of comforted you after you'd had is it the laparoscopy? Is that the right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Laparoscopy. And she is in one of my illustrations. I don't know if you got it. She looked very much like the Greys, except that her eyes were much more human. And she had the ugliest hair I've ever seen in my life. It was just straggly, balding. It looked like Alien gone bad. Yeah, but she was very loving, and she had emotion and feeling. Where the Greys who do these tests, they don't have the empathy. She was a nurturer.
Yeah. Yeah, lovely. So did you see her more than once?
Mr. many times. And I don't see him physically. We communicate through light, knowledge, energy. He gives me mental images, messages. The mental images are how I draw my illustrations. The messages, I don't have to see him physically. I remembered seeing him physically when I was 2 or 3 years old, and it so bothered me, his scales on his face, and I wrote it in a book that I wanted to scratch them right off. But we're beyond that now. We have a symbiotic relationship. I just feel less and less attached to this planet and more attached to them.
Okay, so tell us about your 3-year-old event.
Okay, let me. Okay. This is this is during a regression that I tell Dawn about this, Dr. Bowles, about this event. This was the earliest and surely one of the most frightening times with them. The reptilians showed me a large cement pool or a tank filled with water, and it was divided into 3 sections. and each section contained a terrifying sea creature of some sort. And they had no room to swim forward or backward. They were just in this small section. And as I stood there staring at them, I was terrified. They were just so ugly. I didn't understand why they were showing me this. And then I was told that I had to choose a section and that I had to swim from one side of the tank to the other. I told them I didn't know how to swim, and I was told, you must pick one. You must. So I looked at each creature, and I decided on the one that looked like a goldfish. It looked like a giant, fat goldfish, probably 50 feet long, probably. But it didn't have scales like the one did, and the other one kind of looked like an eely snake. So I finally had made the choice. I figured no matter what tank I chose that I was going to get eaten. Obviously, they didn't require me to go through with this challenge, or I wouldn't be here. I call this a fear challenge. And the reptilians do not understand fear. And I tried to explain to Vaughn that they were curious about which one I would choose. They just wanted to know which one I feared the least.
Oh, right. Interesting.
They weren't trying to hurt me, or they needed to understand fear.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. And so, after that, did they tell you about anything more about that, or was that it? So, at that 3-year-old event.
That's the only thing I remember about that event.
Okay.
Except that wait a minute. Oh, I don't know, now I'm lost here.
Well, that's fine. Let's go back. Let's start because we're getting on now through the program, Nancy. Let's talk about the pregnancy.
Okay. Yeah. Let me find that. Let me get my notes. I'm so anal. I have notes on everything, and my nightmare was I was going to freeze.
Sorry, Nancy. Say that again.
Sid and I were having sex, and out of nowhere, I said, "I'm pregnant, and it's a boy." I mean, the words came out of me, and I didn't even realize what I was saying. I thought, well, that is the stupidest thing. But as the weeks went on, my stomach kept getting larger and larger. And Sid really didn't believe, never believed.
And you're 62 at this time?
Yes.
Of your pregnancy? Okay.
Yeah.
And I was sorry, Nancy. I was just going to say I don't have the photograph to hand, but I will attest to the fact that the photograph Nancy sent me is clearly a very pregnant lady's tummy.
Absolutely.
No two ways about it. It's not the first 2 months or anything where there's a tiny little bump. This is quite a big tummy. So carry on. Sorry, I just wanted to say that.
On March 9th, which is just a little before a month, they took the baby the 15th of April, but before that, Sid and I had, he had booked a room in a hotel, and we were going to see a show, and I didn't feel well, but I went because he was a powder. But when we got into the hotel room, I got into bed, and he collapsed into the bed. They shut him down. He had all of his clothes on, and he collapsed right in the middle of the bed, dead weight. I put my feet in his stomach, and I tried to wake him up, but he was out. And I said, "They're coming to get me." And I wasn't afraid. I just wanted him to see them. But even if he had, he wouldn't have believed that. And that was midnight. at 5 o'clock in the morning, I awoke, and I squinted. And as I squinted, I saw a small gray alien standing to the side of the bed, and he was making circular motions over my stomach with his hands. And he told me telepathically, I am making one last check on the baby. And I felt a true love from him. Sid came too, and didn't know where he was. He's looking around the room. And I said, they took me. I said, they took me and they shut you down. He never did understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right after that, Mr. gave me a mental image of himself he wanted me to draw. I wasn't even sure what I was drawing. And I think I sent you that picture. It's a picture of a draconian reptilian. And I had never even heard of shape-shifting. I didn't know any of this at that time. But I drew the illustration, and I took my illustrations with me to a abduction group. And one of the women looked at the picture, and she said, is this a reptilian? Is he a reptilian? And I said, I guess. Why? And then I started to hear how horrible and terrible and these draconian reptilians are and how negative. But I didn't care, because whatever he was, I loved him. You know what? I've gotten nothing but positive and love from him.
I tell you what, before I put up a picture of him, and also the one that David Chase did for the book cover, which is based on yours as well. Let's just put up that scar picture. We've got the scar picture. Steve's got that up right now. So let's have a look at that, and then maybe we can get up the next picture as well, showing you with your hybrid baby.
Yes, that's me bonding with Drax, and that's a claw mark. There's several pictures I have of that.
Okay, so we've got the scar, which I think is absolutely amazing. So we can see the scar.
Gone in 4 hours. It disappeared. Gone in 4 hours. You can see the faded. It was a hologram. There was absolutely no feeling to it. When I looked in the mirror and saw, I was horrified. This red, infected looking scratch across my breast. And,
well, it's quite big. It's quite substantial. And as you said, when you went to touch it, you couldn't feel any ridges to what there looks like there would be. You know, you would expect there to be ridges, raised skin, but you said there was nothing.
It was flat, completely flat. And it was a hologram. It was nothing more than a hologram. And my right nipple it felt like it had been in a vice. What the mental image I was given of what had happened was that I had breastfed or bonded with my son. Not necessarily that I was lactating. I wasn't. It was a bonding. We needed to bond.
Okay, so there wasn't. In fact, then, do you know if you were lactating or not, or?
No, I was not.
You were not. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to put in a good word for the reptilians while I'm talking about them. We aren't any different from them. We've been inbreeding animals and doing all kinds of surgeries that we aren't even aware of what we've been doing. And I do know that they are able to experience the emotions of anxiety, fear, and sexual pleasure through us, and that they are geneticists, they're scientists. And my belief is that they are just doing some very needed upgrading. And they are removing emotions of hate, rage, and the desire for war and murder from us. they tell me that we must learn to rule by love, not fear.
And it's very interesting, isn't it? Because one of the things that the various reptilians of the various species instill in humanity generally is absolute terror.
But this is how we perceive our reality. Remember, that was what they
sure.
to me. Yes. They took Drax on April 15th, tax day.
So that's your son's name. I'm just want to clarify that. Drax. You've called him Drax.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And what did Mr. say that he was bred for? Because I think this is very interesting. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yes. Well, I had asked them why they had taken my baby, and they told me that they had claimed him, meaning that they asserted their ownership on him. I asked them how they managed to get me pregnant in the first place. That was really important. And I was shown a mental image of a large bowl with a spoon making stirring motions. And so I took it to mean that Drax was a combination of Mr., me, and I hate to say it, but maybe Sid. I can't imagine.
Because, and you say that, and we laugh because Sid is no longer in your life, and you think, oh well,
absolutely not. Yes,
maybe he helped make a baby.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I don't know if I'm jumping ahead or. Because Vaughn asked what was the purpose of the children, of the babies, and I told him that they are always striving for perfection, divinity.
And what was the purpose of Drax's incarnation? What did Mr. tell you he was going to be doing?
Mr. said to me, when I was taken on board and allowed to see my son the first time, and I acted horrible. I wouldn't hold him because his head was so large and misshapen and back was hunched, and I felt like I'd been tricked. And after that, I felt horrible, and I begged them to please let me see Drax, and I would love him. And he told me in these words, he said, Drax is exactly the way he was meant to be. He is a, with quotation, thinker. And a thinker is a group of beings that they are creating. He said, Drax will make many wise decisions. He is a judge of sorts, and every society needs judges.
How lovely. Yeah.
Yes.
Wise ones, anyway. Wise ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we put a picture, or we're just about to, of the drawing that David, I think it's Chase, or is it Chance, has done for you, the book cover, which is, sorry, not Drax, it's Mr. in a red cloak.
Mm-hmm.
And that, so people can see what he looked like, and that drawing, the drawing that you did was not with the red cloak, that's what he's done. I don't know if he was in a red cloak when you saw him, but anyway, that's for the book cover in it. And I think it's very interesting because in your own drawing, we don't see quite the detail of the face, but we certainly do in this one, which is very, very well done. Is that a good representation, do you think?
Yes, it is. Yes. I worked with David for quite a while. He changed it around several times. Yes, that's
great.
The physical of him.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have just another question, Nancy, whilst you're having a think there. Do you have any idea what the purpose of a real out-of-body experience is for? And that's from our Scottish contingent with their ice creams and front row seats up in Lossiemouth there.
I don't understand the question.
All right. I think he's just asking, do you have any understanding from what your experiences have been about out-of-body experiences? As opposed to, I guess, the physical related one? If there's a real purpose of an out-of-body experience as opposed to a material physical one? You might not know, Nancy. It's all right not to know.
I don't know. Like I said, this is all still new to me. It's only been 4 years. And the more I know, the less I know. And I don't have all the answers. So I only know what you told me so far.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's such a lot, Nancy, that you've had to take on in 4 years. And I think it's fascinating that it's at this time in your life, that it wasn't, at any other. So it must mean that you are in a situation in your development now that is attuned. And for some reason, the strength that you have to move forward with getting this information out there, obviously, is really important, because that's the whole thing, isn't it? It's about you helping others to acclimatize through telling your story as well, isn't it? That's
yeah. And telling them not to be afraid.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I just want to read out, and maybe if we can put this quote up, Stephen, that I've just re-put back into the box there, so you can grab it quickly. If you could throw that up, Stephen. I'm just going to read this out whilst Nancy's having a little look. We're coming to the end, Nancy. We're due off air shortly, but I just want to read this. It's a quote that Nancy has got on her Facebook page, and it's Nancy SCHINGECK Tremaine. SCHINGECK, I beg your pardon, I'm not saying it correctly, which is a beautiful name. And it says, this is from Peter Nielsen. I don't know whether if he's a trainer or a coach.
He was the first one who got me into working out. Yes, I can't believe he wrote in. Wow, I can't even believe he's listening to the program. Peter Nielsen, yes.
Okay,
what did he say?
I wanted to just share with people the quote, which says, the moment you feel like you have to prove your worth to someone is the moment to absolutely and utterly walk away. You know what? I absolutely, totally agree with him. So, and you know what? That is what so many experiencers have to contend with, this validation process, this not feeling, valued because they're not believed, and because they have such a hard time at the hands of society and media in general, So exactly. I think that's really, really valid and very relevant. And I just wanted to put that up simply because, and to share it, because I think it's true for all of us, whatever our situation is, but certainly in that regard. So anyway, Nancy, so listen, we're really close to having to leave. I told you it would go fast, didn't I?
Wow. Yeah, we didn't even get to the Drax tracks or the missing times and so many things. Yes, but that's good. You did this. This was 2 hours?
Yeah.
No, I can't believe it. I'm missing time.
So,
well, it's been wonderful. And, so healing for me every time. This is my third, and they said 3rd one is a charm. And wow, I feel like I just got a big weight off my shoulder, and it's wonderful every time I tell my story and somebody listens to me, and it's not my daughter telling me that I'm insane and I need to be put in a mental institution, and that all the people that I'm working with and the ufologists are all insane. Yeah, I understand that. I really do. Listen, I think we're being given just a few minutes, so I just want to mention the Ammach get together again.
If you can, Steve, just before I come back to you, Nancy, bear with me a second.
Sure.
If we can just put up, if you hang on for a moment, Nancy, that'd be great. Gonna keep you for a few more minutes. That'd be lovely if nobody minds. And Stephen, if you can just put up my information there about the Ammach do. Let me know when that's up if you don't mind, because I can't see anything. It's really frustrating.
It's up. It's up.
And thank you. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. So it's just really to flag up, guys and girls, for those who didn't hear me at the beginning, just to flag up that this is information about the Ammach Christmas get-together. It's just the afternoon on the 19th of December. We'd love to see you there. It's going to be mince pies, mulled wine, and we've got speaker James Bartley joining us from across the world, talking about MyLabs and some latest information from some of those folks who've been involved with MyLabs and Mars. Now, I'm not going to tell you any more about that at the moment, but it is, latest hot off the press stuff, really interesting stuff. So James will be speaking to us at 2:30. Because of the time difference of where he is, we couldn't make it much later. So it's a 1:30 start. We have a festive welcome. And after James's talk, and he'll take Q&As afterwards, he'll be speaking for about an hour. Q&As afterwards, and then we'll do a little bit of sharing, case histories, and anything else. And this is meant to be a time where you guys, you experiencers and researchers, can share some time in a friendly location and place. It's going to be in the Hastings area of the southeast of the UK. You can phone me either to let me know that you're coming, or email me at amash@hotmail.co.uk. And as I said before, please don't go to the website at the moment. It has been hacked to Hades, but that's all okay. It's causing a totally different wave of energy to be manifesting in this neck of the woods. And I'll tell you all about that toward the end of the month. So we're just going to finish off now with Nancy. And I think the Drax Tracks is a great story to end on, Nancy.
Oh, we've got 2 minutes for me to tell about the Drax Tracks?
Yeah, I think just really briefly, and then we'll let everyone go. And I'm going to try and see if I can pull up, just as we're talking, the picture and send that over to, let me just see if I can find it. Okay. All right, so you carry on telling us that story there.
Okay. I pulled back my curtains. It had snowed the night before, and I saw a set of tracks clearly leading from my patio to a fenced area well off of my property. And it had snowed the night before, and this day, it was warmer, so the snow was starting to melt. But these tracks were in a perfectly straight line, and they ran as far as the eye could see. So I stepped out onto my back patio, and I peeked around the corner, and the footprints went right up to my bedroom window. I got out my tape measure. They only measured 3 inches. They were totally circular, and they looked like horseshoe tracks. You can look at them, and they've been on the internet for 3 years, and no one
lost your video, Joanne.
They were there.
Joanne.
Sorry, Stephen.
I lost your video.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So what? You're not seeing me?
Nope, just your picture.
Okay. All right. I'm just going to try and get the. Okay, not to worry. I'm just trying to see if I can grab this image. It's not playing ball. Typical, isn't it? All right. So sorry, Nancy. Continue, please, and then we will close.
There's a video on YouTube called "Footprints in the Snow" that was put out by Bean's Investigation.
All right.
Anyone can download that, and it shows the tracks. I took several videos and pictures and measured them. They're 3 inches in length and 3 inches in between each step. And they're in a straight line. And I called Roy, one of my best friends, who is a farmer, a retired Air Force veteran and fireman, and he is a no-nonsense person. He assessed the tracks. They were not made by any animal. He said, and he's a hunter. He said he'd never seen anything like them. Couldn't believe how small they were. And it would be a couple of weeks before I would find out what they were. I just kept asking, what were those? What were those? And I was standing in the kitchen, and I was told by my son, Drex.
All right. Interesting. Well, I'm not, oh, hang on. Maybe I can just grab that image. I've got a horrible little mouse thing at the moment because my other mouse kind of broke down on me during the show.
Send me the link. Send me the link, Joanne. Joanne, send me the link. I'll grab it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, sorry, I've just grabbed it now, so I'm just about to send this to you. Sorry, folks, this is a little bit bitty, but I just think it's kind of interesting as it's an actual photograph. Hang on, I'm just about to grab it. You know what? These mice are driving me mad tonight. There we go. There's the Drex tracks. Stephen, I don't know if you can see that. We'll just put that up on the video there. Did you grab that yet? Just so people can see, they really are almost virtually a straight line and in the crisp snow. And you were having these kind of atmosphere changes, weren't you?
Having what?
The atmosphere kind of changed energy. There was a different dynamic during the room, during the evening that these tracks were possibly being made.
Yes, I didn't have time to get to that, but the night before that, Roy had been over, and he kept getting the heebie-jeebies, and he saw sparks of electricity coming off of me, and he kept shrugging his shoulders and squealing like a girl. And we kept looking around like there was something we were going to see, and of course, in the morning, Drex was 9 months old when those tracks were made.
Oh, really?
And they appear to be like metal horseshoe-like devices, and that were probably attached to little boots that he wore. I'm curious if anyone has ever known of aliens to have some type of boots that they wear in the snow. And also my son Drex is a digitigrade, which means he walks on his toes with his heels off the ground. So when you look at those circular footprints, that makes more sense.
Well, that's very interesting. That's going to make him, his posture and his move. Gosh, I wonder how tall he is then to make those very
small.
Or maybe even not that small. I'm thinking if the 3 inches is his tippy toes, that's going to be a bit of a length of foot. How interesting. So,
yes, well, just as Mr. said, he's exactly the way he was meant to be.
Okay. Well, listen, Nancy, I know we could speak for longer, and I really want to thank you for sharing your story, and thanks, Stephen, for bearing with us whilst we're trying to get some of these videos and pictures up, and I believe we had a silent video of Skinny Bob. Not the best thing for radio, but never mind.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I truly appreciate it, and anyone listening, thank you so much.
Well, it's been great, Nancy, and we did hear at the beginning, just your fear there, and really felt for you. So, well done you. Well done you for hanging on in there, and you've done a tremendous amount of work to bring a cohesive story to us. You did a lot of work there. I know you did, and thank you for letting me share your story as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, everybody. Well, I guess this is time to say thank you on the 1st of December. Oh, actually, it's not. It's the 2nd of December. All right, folks. So, Stephen Roberts, thank you once again for bearing with us. And everybody in PIR and who gets to listen to this, thanks very much. And this is an Experiencer program. And we're over and out of the Ammach Files. Thank you, Stephen. Bless you. And thanks, everybody.